Welcome back to Change Your Perspective, Change Your Awareness, Change Your Life. I'm Dr. Michelina AF, hashtag that felon doctor, here to talk to you about more conflicts that happen in literature that are applicable to your life. And I'm actually going to lump three together today because they're all kind of similar. Person versus God, person versus fate, and person versus supernatural, right? They're all different types of very similar ideologies and concepts. And so you'll see this a lot with people who are in conflict with the supernatural, the things that they can't see, the creator, assuming that they believe there is or isn't one, things that they want to do, right? This conflict style has a lot to do with free will versus, let's call, creative design. And it's like this conflict arises where it's like, I want to do this thing, but I'm told not to do X, Y, or Z, or my beliefs say that I shouldn't do this, or the supernatural. In like literature, a lot of times you have witches or gods or things. The supernatural is like kind of interfering and telling me not to do this thing. You see this a lot. So when we're talking about it in real life, like, what does it really look like? So let's start with person versus God. That one's very easy. We have a lot of that going on right now where it's like, oh, well, you can't prove God, so does he exist? And it's like, I don't know. Like, what do you think? Like, it's literally just this thing, fate, supernatural, and God is like, a lot of it cannot be determined. And that unknown, that high level unknown, really freaks a lot of people out, right? You get a lot of people who freak out at that kind of unknown entity. The other conflict styles are pretty obvious. We haven't talked about technology yet, but like technology, nature, society, people, and yourself, they're all very 3D reality. These three, supernatural, fate, and God, they are not. They're very 5D higher level stuff. Now, we do have in real time quantum physics that is really showing that there's an energetic level to all things that attracts, and if you've ever heard the phrase as above, so below, as within, so without, quantum physics really shows and proves that. There's a concept called quantum entanglement where the words that you speak can hit the farthest edge of a star, right? And so like really, really cool stuff here, but also really hard to wrap your mind around in these sort of small flesh meat suit bodies. And so people who have this belief that I can only believe in what I can see will fall victim to this. And that's tough because if you only believe in what you can see, you're limiting yourself in very many ways, right? And so like you can't see the air particles, you can't see photosynthesis happening, like you can see the results of that. We're not dead. Plants go from green to brown, right? Like you can see the results of these minute processes that you have no awareness of, but you can't actually see it happening. Additionally, like you can't see the blood flowing in your body, you know it is. And so if you are paying attention to only what you can see, probably you're going to have this conflict on some level. Fate, supernatural, God, you're going to have this conflict because it's like you can't reconcile the concrete thing that you see and the abstract principles that function and govern our universe. And I like to give an example that one of my friends who's a doctor in occupational therapy, she taught me. I didn't know. So she was telling me about the body. She's teaching me about the body. And I was in her course. It was a great course. And she was like, did you know that, pick a color. And I was like, pink. I had like a pink water bottle. She was like, that color is every color but pink. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And she was like, yes, it's all the light. It will absorb all the light except for pink. It will refract it. And that's why it looks pink to our eyes. And I was like, hold the phone. So you're telling me, right? And so that's really like, that was radically cool to me. And science, has already proven that. But here is the thing, even taking light waves, first off the light wave spectrum, we are well aware we can only see like 20% of it. Additionally, everything that we look at isn't actually what we see. Not to mention, if you know anything about the eye, it flips the image, right? So our very reality that we look at is not as concrete as we think it is. The things that we hear are all sound waves, not at all concrete. you know? And so when you have this person versus supernatural, God, fate conflict, it's because you can't reconcile the very concrete things with the very abstract ways in which the universe functions. And so let's take man versus God. That's a very normal conflict that we have in pretty substantial ways, where it's like person versus creator. And you also get like parent versus child here, because technically they created you, right? You're half of your dad and you're half of your mom. And so there's this fundamental battle that happens a lot of times with independence and dependence on the creator. And it's really complicated and complex, because it's like, oh, I am my own individual entity, but also I am dependent in this way, shape, and form for maybe 0 to 18 years of my life. And then also I'm interdependently working with this entity. And so like, as far as like, let's say if we're talking about God, and let's talk about the Christian God, you're working interdependently with the Christian God, who is like a whole hell of a lot more powerful than you, but also is working through you all the time. But also you have to empty yourself as a vessel to be worked through. And it's like, what's the dynamic here? Like, where do I end and where does that exist and begin? And that is a person versus creator conflict, right? And we see it all the time. Like, let's talk about acorns and oaks, right? That oak is still the acorn, but it's not. You are still a child, but you're not. But like, I also like to talk about how we grow, right? Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, sexually, intellectually, financially, 7 different ways that we grow. You might be an emotional child if you parked at the point of your pain when you were 5 years old and you had adversity that you didn't deal well with because you're 5, and you just internalized it as trauma, right? So like, the man versus God conflict's a really powerful one that most people, I would say, on some degree struggle with. We can kind of a little bit lump supernatural in there. So man versus supernatural, that is something that is beyond the natural, right? Supernatural. So whatever you see naturally occurring, beyond it. So that's things like, energies, like demonic possessions would be a supernatural. Anything that's like angelic, life after death, that's all supernatural stuff, right? That is beyond the realm of the natural order of things. Like, that's beyond the pale. We don't quite understand it. It's a separate dimension we can't quite comprehend because we're not in it, right? So when things happen that are supernatural, I don't know if you've ever watched like those documentaries that are like ghost hunting shows or whatever, and there's energies and like spirits that attach to objects, and it's like, this is probably clearly true, that's a man versus supernatural conflict. And things that are somewhat inexplicable do happen. We do see it. And we can take the flip side of it, I guess. The possessions and things are kind of creepy. Let's take not creepy things. We see miracles happen that we cannot explain, that science cannot explain. Doctors talk about all the time, where it's like, yeah, no, I have no idea how this happened. Actually, this happened to my best friend. She had a brain tumor that was inoperable for her whole life, that was supposed to end her life early. 1 minute she's having seizures and can't breathe. The next minute the tumor is actually gone and nobody knew how it happened. And then because it was completely gone, she got to pursue her dream of being in the Air Force. And she's like a high-level official as an airwoman now in the K-9, guarded the president. And so it's like this really fascinating thing here that we cannot explain, this supernatural entity. And so man versus the supernatural focuses on that conflict. So if you're somebody who's like constantly grappling with the things that you can't see and you're like trying to understand it, you have a man versus God, man versus supernatural conflict. Man versus fate is a little trickier because that has to do with God and the supernatural, and it's on this other weird avenue of like predestination, right? What's free will versus what's already decided. And that, if you are somebody who feels like, well, that was going to happen anyway, or everything happens for a reason, or this, that, or the other thing, you might be in that conflict, or you might have already made peace with that, right? So a lot of times people are like, well, why do bad things happen to good people? I was like, well, bad things happen because we experience adversity all the time. Like, that's just how it goes. You know, a lot of times we make our own drama and our own conflicts. So like I was talking to someone this morning actually, and I was like, yeah, we're living out the consequences of your bad decisions. And I don't know if you've ever heard that, but yeah, we are living out the consequences of your bad decisions, which I'm living out the consequences of my own bad decisions. So like that can happen anywhere, anytime, all the time. If you're overweight because you've eaten a whole lot, you're living out the consequences of your bad decisions. Actions have consequences. So sometimes bad things happen to good people because good people make bad decisions. It's very possible. This happens, you know, quite a lot, in fact. We do the best we can with what we've got. We make the best choice that we can. And sometimes it's not a great choice. And so man versus fate conflict comes into play when it's like, okay, well, is there anything that I can do that is not already decided? It's like, ooh, it depends on your belief system, right? And these three are tricky because they are as true as you believe them to be. If you believe in, you know, some kind of supernatural entity, like you might believe it and somebody else might not. You believe in one God, somebody else might believe in another God. Like, so these three, if you have these, they're a little tricky because it really comes down to what are your beliefs on it? And what we do here is we internalize the beliefs that we grew up with. So like I would really urge pretty much everybody who's watching this to check out if those beliefs belong to you or not. Like for me, I was raised in the Roman Catholic Church, and no disrespect to Roman Catholicism, if you watch it or believe it or practice it, I made my sacraments, was an altar server, did all the things in the Roman Catholic Church, and I fundamentally did not agree with the church practices. I was like, it wasn't for me. And so like, for me, I re-examined those beliefs in myself, and I was like, I understand that I was raised this way and that like my parents were doing the best they could to give me whatever they thought I needed, but I fundamentally do not agree with this practice. So I'm all set. So like I came to an age of accountability and I was like, no, thank you. I'm not here for it. And the rest of the family came to that too, but like not the point. You want to evaluate your belief system. You want to make sure the beliefs that you have are actually aligned with how you feel, think, and want to show up. So like you don't want to just do things because like your parents told you to, you know? And so Easter is a good example of that. Easter is a great example of that. I'm like, why? Why are we practicing a holiday that doesn't exist in the Bible and also like is all about fertility? Like eggs and rabbits. Like what is happening here? Like this doesn't make any logical sense. Like I don't get it. I don't get it. Like if you want to believe in the Christian community, right? If you want to believe that Jesus died and rose again, what in the heck does that have to do with Easter? The Easter that we celebrate. And the answer is virtually nothing. Like virtually nothing. And people don't think about it because they just do the traditions that they've always done without thinking. And so then they don't have a man versus God conflict. They have a man versus self conflict because they haven't even thought about the man versus God thing. They have a man versus self conflict they're not even aware of, which is that your beliefs aren't yours. That's a man versus self. So I don't want to go too long on this. I know I talked about 3 concepts in one here, but yes, very, very fascinating, very, very interesting stuff. We will talk a little bit more in the next couple days about these conflicts, and then we're going to move into something new. Hope this is really interesting to you. I hope this is raising your perspective so that you can change your awareness and change your life. If you are ready to take some aligned action, acornsandoaks.vhx.tv. There are courses there that will help you 10x your transformation or you going through a problem or an issue right now. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, doing all the things that'll grow the channel if you're interested in what's going on here.